So I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone here, whether or not you participated in this last sale. You're here and part of the community. So thank you. We could not have gotten this far without you. Some fun stats and information regarding the sale that we just kind of came out of. I'm going to just give you guys rough numbers. We generated about 250K in revenue here. We have 120 new owners. So these are addresses that did not exist prior to this last sale. That means 120 new, community members, unless you guys are buying on alt accounts. And then we've got about 150 new addresses who bought Sway. So again, that might mean there might be some overlap there. And then about 300 asteroids were sold. And this might sound to some of you guys who were here in other sales like a small amount or something along those lines. But this was not a high-pressured sale. We know we're going to be launching soon. This is really just we need to build out some of these systems prior to launch anyways. And we know that there were some people that wanted to get involved. So we gave them that opportunity. Really happy with how everything turned out. We've got a lot in the pipeline coming from, just kind of the game development side and also bringing more people into the community. And I'm going to be working really heavily on that, bringing more people into the community side. And the funds that we were able to achieve from this last sale are going to help empower that. The team is doing totally fine financially. We have no issues getting to exploitation and releasing that, and we're very excited to be so close to launch. I know soon is kind of a relative term to how you want to say that, but fairly soon. And then testnet phase 4 will be a little bit before that, and that's really exciting for me. I think we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to try and really get alliances to participate as a group. We might have some tournaments. We're hopefully going to have some content creators amplify this, and we've got a lot of ideas here that are going to be pieced together now to be prepared for that. So super exciting. Also want to give big shout out to Sergey. We're now working on the marketplace. He had his first iteration of kind of the full flow from start to finish of all the different screens and buttons and interactions that you could have in marketplaces. And it's looking absolutely incredible. So if you haven't already seen the announcement in chat or in the announcements channel, check it out. That's looking stunning, honestly. There's definitely some tweaks. And it does say work in progress on there because we've already kind of gone through as a team internally and made some initial kind of suggestions and changes. Proto, can probably speak to that as well. But, overall, everything's looking absolutely amazing. I am just honestly floored by where we're at, and I could not be more excited. Proto, do you want to share with the community kind of what you're working on, and maybe if you want to give any color to anything that we've been talking about, by all means.
Yeah, sure. You guys know what I've been working on, which is still the production chain recipes. That's been sort of my primary focus, up until now, and continuing. I was posting in general the other day, I guess yesterday, sort of one of the little subsections that just, that I've been encountering as I've been going through and sort of finding these numbers for the inputs and outputs for these recipes. If you guys take a look up, you'll see that I was talking about, I think, the hydrofluoric acid and potassium fluoride, just sort of how those two particular products out of the several hundred that we have in the game, how those two sort of play together, what the cycles around those look like when you're producing, for example, fluorine or tantalum, which are the two of the major outputs that come from those. There's others, but those are the two I chose to highlight in that little picture. You'll just see that there's a lot of very interesting, complicated interactions between these different products. There are sort of ways to recycle some of them as outputs that you used earlier for previous processes when you're producing something. So I think there's just so many really interesting opportunities for rich ways to set up your production chains, in ways that you can sort of take advantage of these, economics of being able to recycle things, of being able to sort of cross feed, today it's more profitable to make fluorine than it is to make tantalum, or tomorrow it's the other way around. You can sort of imagine how people may have a lot of flexibility in their production chains with what they make at any given time. So I'm really excited to be just getting some numbers on that and being able to more carefully envision how that'll all work out. But yeah, that's pretty much where I've been at. I've been using I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I've been using ChatGPT like everybody else and their dog is currently. But it's actually really helpful to just get sort of initial answers about particular industrial processes or particular chemical equations. Like, yes, I can go Google that and spend 5 or 10 minutes like digging into a few articles and making sure they match and getting the answer. Or I can ask ChatGPT and 80% of the time it looks great, and the other 20% of the time I just check with Google again and sort of figure out which times it's actually making stuff up. So really helpful, good helpful part of my workflow. And as JP mentioned, I've been working a little bit with Sergey on his marketplace UI, which I'm really excited about. You guys, I think, just got a spoiler on that. It's basically what a lot of the game is going to be kind of focused around. I mean, this is an economy simulator. It's an open economy, so buying and selling of products in the game is kind of like one of the main things you're going to be doing in the game, other than like making those materials, you'll be buying and selling them. And the marketplace is really the sort of crux of that. The way we're thinking about marketplaces, like there's sort of the mom and pop shop and the Walmart. Those are two sort of extremes that you can picture, like where there's like a tiny little store that just like, or even the gas station that just sells one thing, and then versus like a huge supermarket or a department store that just sells everything. And we kind of are intending with exploitation to support marketplaces that are in the sort of left side of that, sort of in the smaller, specific things up to sort of moderately medium amounts of items. The chief limitation on marketplaces that we're pretty sure we're going with is that the number of items that you can sell in a marketplace is limited. So you as the marketplace owner will select which products you want to have available for buying and selling in your marketplace, and there will be a limit to that. So somewhere in the I think 10 to 50, probably closer to 20 is where we're going to come out there. For exploitation anyway, there'll be a limitation on the number of products that you can sell in your marketplace. So you need to be selective in what you're selling and make sure that it sort of makes sense. Like if you want to be sort of a, I'm going to sell ship components, like, okay, that's a cohesive thing that, people will come to your market for ship components. Or I'm going to sell acids, like, okay, this is the acid marketplace. The way that network effects work is that, the more people sort of centralize on particular spots, like that's the spot that tends to get a lot of the traffic, get a lot of the people coming and trading things there. And we think that by forcing marketplace owners to specialize a little bit more, we will make it more interesting. Because if we just allowed every marketplace to have every single product in it, you just get a situation where there'd be a few huge marketplaces that just had everything, and all the smaller ones would really struggle to compete because they weren't highly liquid, they didn't have all the network effects. By forcing specialization, we think that we're going to give a lot more opportunities for people to sort of find niches for their marketplaces, where they can really have a chance of being the primary spot to buy like capacitors or motors or like this or that. There's all these different things, that opportunities for you to sort of specialize and make a name for yourself for your marketplace. So we're pretty excited about that mechanic. And as I said, I've been working with Sergey a little bit to sort of translate that into the UI. I mean, as always, he's a complete wizard. So if you guys take a look at that, the way that we're sort of envisioning that marketplaces will work in terms of like using the game is that you will be on an asteroid, like you're on a particular asteroid, and I won't talk about like the sort of cross the belt market, but when you're on an asteroid, you will go to the market tab. There'll be like a sort of tab on the right that you go into, and it will list all of the products that are available on that asteroid across all the marketplaces that are there. So you will see, if there's 100 different marketplaces, you'll see all the products that are like sort of collectively being sold or bought in all of those marketplaces. So you can scroll through those products, you'll see everything there, sort of like prices and potentially some, information about the liquidity available for those products. And if you click into that, you'll see a list of all the actual marketplace buildings that are selling that particular product that you selected. If you click on one of those, that'll take you to the actual marketplace that you clicked on, that lot, in lot view, and you'll be able to take a look at the marketplace, and you'll see a whole depth chart, and the ability to buy and sell, sort of place limit buys or market buys or sells for that product on that marketplace. And you can actually back up a step from there in that same marketplace, that single marketplace building, and you'll see all the products that are just available in that one marketplace building. So if you wanted to, you could also just click to that lot and go to the market tab on that marketplace, and you'll see just what's being sold there. But we expect that the sort of asteroid-wide market tab will be the way that people find most things on an asteroid, since you might not know what marketplaces something is being sold at. Unless, of course, you have a favorite marketplace that, it's just like, oh yeah, Bob's, ship parts emporium. That's where I always go for ship parts. Like, why anywhere else? I don't even need to look. That's just where I'm going to go. So we want to support those kinds of different gameplay styles of people coming in and finding what they want to buy, or a place for them to sell what they want to sell. Um, and I'm really excited to sort of see this UI coming together. It feels a lot more real, and like honestly, like every single marketplace is its own exchange. It's like you can be Binance, or you can be Coinbase, or you can be Poloniex, or whatever you want to be. Like you can be your own exchange, in this game, and I'm so excited to see what players do with that. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much where my focus has been, is production chains and a little bit of marketplace thinking.
I definitely want to add to the just marketplace discussion is like the flow of marketplaces in this game will feel very, I think, natural to players in how they would work, kind of in the real world. When you think about going to a corner store, for example, right now, you typically don't go there for all of your groceries. You go there for some things or because you forgot something. And so different marketplaces will have different items, and there's also a limited number of items that can be on these marketplaces. And so you have natural competition when it comes to wanting to supply particular goods, but it also makes it so that you can compete more easily with other marketplaces simply by offering different materials that may also be in demand. And so this also gives a natural upgrade path in discovery to be able to like open up the ability for merchants to maybe include more additional products and things like that. And there's also traits that can affect this as well. We can't go into too much details on bonuses or traits at this point. We're still balancing that. But I think it's going to be a really, really fun way to engage with this game. And then we were looking at some of the screens, and we'll start to show these as they get a little bit more polished, and the team's comfortable with kind of where they're at. But if you look at a traditional market book, or we'll call it even a cryptocurrency market like Coinbase or any of the pro sites that have kind of depth charts, those are also going to be included. So you'll see both the buy and sell side and kind of the depths of those charts, and you'll be able to see your orders within that as well. And it's going to be able to auto-populate on click where you click within this demand that will either generate a sell or buy order at that price that you can then complete. So I think it's going to blow people away. I honestly haven't seen this in any other game, and I'm super excited to be a merchant now in this game that I've seen the UI.
I know, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. To answer a couple of questions here in chat, Commander is asking, so the number of different items will be limited, but will multiple sellers be able to sell the same item through on Marketplace? Yes. So you can basically picture it as each marketplace, first and foremost, has a set of products that have been selected by its owner that are able to be traded on that marketplace, either bought or sold. And then once they've selected that set of items up to some limit, then anybody can come and place an order, buy or sell orders for those products and start to contribute liquidity to that marketplace. And that includes the market owner, that includes anybody who has permission to use that marketplace. And yes, there are permissions, so they could set it to be like private or whitelisted if they really wanted to. But I think most people will want their marketplace open because that maximizes liquidity. So that's how that'll work. And they'll also set a fee while they're doing that. You'll set whatever percent of the total trade that happens in that marketplace will go to you as the market owner, and we expect that that's going to be a point of competition amongst marketplaces. If you want to be competitive, you'll have to keep a pretty low fee. The higher a fee you have, then the less likely people are going to be to want to use your marketplace if there's cheaper ones around. There's also a question: will you need to be at the asteroid to see marketplaces, or will you be able to screen all marketplaces on all asteroids prior to going there? So that's actually the other way that we are allowing you to sort of search markets, which is the list view, which you'll hear more about as we get into phase 4, because it's a pretty major component of our new UI. It's basically the spreadsheet mode, and it allows you to search for and filter pretty powerfully. And one of the things that we're allowing you to search for is what we're calling market orders, but it's not actually individual market orders. There's basically every asteroid marketplace product pair that exists that product is available at that marketplace on that asteroid. You will be able to search for and filter on. So if you're, say, looking for Apatite, you can, at the system level, search for all market Apatite, the places where Apatite is being sold, which will turn up all the different asteroids, all different marketplaces on those asteroids. And so you can actually go and dig in and say, okay, where is Apatite cheapest in the entire belt, if you're really wanting to play that sort of arbitrage game and think about shipping it from here to there. So you'll go to list view to do that. But if you want to see the nice, pretty sort of marketplace graphics where it's, looks a lot more like a store that you want to go into, then you would do that on the asteroid, on a particular asteroid. It doesn't have to be the one that your crew is on, but on any asteroid, you could go and, look at that market and see all the different products that are available on that asteroid, and then click into an individual marketplace to see what's available in that particular marketplace. Obviously, if you want to buy or sell something, you have to have your crew there, but you can look from anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
some
think 20.
questions
To be clear,
here.
20 is speculative. We haven't actually finalized any numbers yet. It probably will be pretty close to that, though.
Yeah, I think
And
we'll give the range between 10 and 50 is kind of where we're thinking, and we'll balance around that. It's not decided though. So I think 2025 is probably a good idea to keep in your head, but don't be shocked if it's less or more.
yeah, and regarding upgrading that, absolutely, like that is something we would love to have you be able to upgrade. Whether that means you can do it in exploitation via having traits or different, like a certain number of merchants on your crew or whatever, we haven't clarified that yet. We're still actively working on that. Um, Partly because it's a little bit complicated. Like the model that we have for traits and crew bonuses right now is that they always apply to actions. So your crew takes an action, and then that action is boosted in a particular way by the stats of that crew. Having a marketplace be like continuously modified such that it like can continuously have like more items on it is kind of a different model, and so we're thinking about whether that does or doesn't make sense, and how to sort of integrate that with the usual model of actions being the things that are impacted. So TBD, we'll go back to you on that, but definitely in Discovery, I think you can expect there to be like actual upgrade paths to the marketplace building itself that would allow you to have more products stored in it, for example. Um, and Harris is asking, are there built-in mechanics for different fee levels, like Alliance versus Public, or is this for third-party contracts? I think the way that you can envision it is that there will be a single fee percentage at exploitation that you have available to you. You'll just be able to set that, whatever percent it is that you want to take. And potentially after exploitation, when we have more time to sort of work on these more advanced features, we might add a third-party hook that would allow you to use a third-party contract to determine how much fees you want to charge, depending on like the particular crew that's trying to buy something or sell something. So that would be how you would implement like alliance-specific deals for fees or whatever. But also if you want to get cheaper fees on a marketplace, that's definitely something that having merchants on your crew, that's one of the major benefits of having merchants is that you get better deals on marketplaces. So you can expect that fees will be sort of like a lower limit more or less on what we're actually going to charge people. I guess if you didn't have any merchants on your crew, you'd have that usual 50% like sort of nerf on your ability, so you might get twice the fees if you don't have any merchants. So definitely if you're ever trading anything, consider having a merchant on your crew.
Yeah, to address a few things. So, will it be upgradable? Yes, but in Discovery, there might be some upgrades, like Proto was saying, prior to Discovery with additions of functionality. But with Olmop's question, Proto, feel free to dive in here too, because I know you're doing game design more heavily than I think about it. But it has to do with simply what if you change your crew? What happens at that point? We kind of talked about this as a team yesterday, and it's essentially, let's say you have a crewmate that allows you to have more items on a marketplace, and then you slot them, or you change them out. Does that just disappear the order on the marketplace? Does it make it so you can't put any more on there, but they can exist until they're gone? There's just a lot of, I think, fringe things you have to think about when that might be the option.
Yeah, we want to avoid the situation where like there's a sort of continuous bonus or penalty to having a particular crew just sitting there not doing anything. Ideally, again, every crew bonus or crew sort of boost or class related boost, trait related boost, job related boost happens with actions. It's like when you take an action with a crew, that action is boosted by that particular amount. So that makes things like having a continuous running like improvement to the marketplace based on your crew allocation a little bit tricky. I.e., we might want to try to avoid that. So I think Olmas was asking like, what about using a bonus for when you create an offer on a marketplace? So that currently we're sort of talking about like the owner side, like how does the owner's crew impact the marketplace? On the other side is of course the user of the marketplace, like the buy and the sell people who are actually placing orders. And in that case, you can certainly expect that some of the other traits or the overall number of merchants on your crew will impact like sort of the fee benefits that you get for that or other particular benefits. But again, overall, this is all still sort of figured out. You can expect you'll have more final answers once we've implemented it, especially like implementation is almost always when some of these questions get answered just because we have to write the code at that moment. And, before that, we're just sort of like have a rough idea of how it's going to work.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more color to kind of like merchant bonuses, if this is how they work in terms of like reducing the fee at marketplaces, because I asked this question yesterday, but it wouldn't be like you get a 5% reduction, and it just cuts like if the fee is 5% on the marketplace, then you don't pay any fees. It would be a 5%, reduction on that fee. So it would be fairly balanced so that marketplace owners aren't seeing people skirt around fees completely, but it would also make it powerful for merchants to be utilized when you're trying to purchase bulk items.
Yeah, I would say that a guiding principle for or like sort of overall crew bonuses or class related bonuses is that we want them to be used. We don't want a situation where you just have a crew with a certain set of bonuses and you station them somewhere or put them somewhere or lock them up somewhere or whatever, and then you don't have to do anything to get a bonus continuously from them indefinitely. Like that's not really a fun game when people just like put their crew there and never touch them again because it has a great bonus for being a merchant or whatever it is. We want you to play with these crews, and so that's why it's all action based. Like you don't see any benefit from a crew unless you're actually using it and taking actions with it. So I think you can expect that most of our game design decisions will be around how can we make those crews be useful and have those actions that you can take with them be boosted by their benefits. In discovery, that's when we'll start looking at upgrade paths for like infrastructure, where you can start to make like a building better at something or make a ship better at something than its sort of base level. And certainly the crew actions would potentially flow into that. Like you may be able to do that better or do that faster with your crew. But for exploitation right now, it's basically actions that you take with your crew will be impacted.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about when it comes to marketplaces, and we are trying to provide you guys with the absolute best experience possible that makes the game fun to play. But some of the more nuanced additional features will either need to be third-party contract or kind of the path for discovery. I think we are, in Proto, you can speak to this as well, but we have to think about what is kind of the base Adalian colony need. What's it look like now, and where can we leave room for that more depth added from discovery? And I think there's opportunities for that across all buildings, all crewmates, and being able to have these robust talent and skill trees and technology and things like that. So making sure that we have the good foundation set, and then we can build on top of that.
Absolutely. Nethrex is asking how expensive a marketplace will be to build. And the answer there is it's, I think, I can't give a specific number, but you can imagine sort of 8, 10, 12, somewhere in that range number of warehouses or extractors would be equivalent to a marketplace, roughly speaking. So, yes, you could probably have one on a 13-kilometer asteroid. It would just about make sense. I think it would be a stretch, maybe a little bit, but you could have one if you wanted. It wouldn't be absolutely absurd.
Yeah. I think while you could feasibly have a marketplace on a small asteroid, it's the liquidity crunch that is going to be difficult because you're balancing now warehouses, marketplace, and extractors. So realistically, I don't see. I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see someone try, but I really think that like 100 kilometers squared of surface area is kind of that baseline for where maybe a generalized marketplace could start to make sense. But again, there's these huge asteroids in the belt that are going to be quite large and have a lot of space, and they'll be able to have many marketplaces. And because there's quite a few goods and your marketplaces are limited to what it can sell, you're going to see a lot more of a vibrant, urban sprawl and city with multiple shopping centers on those larger asteroids. And I think a big reason why to have limited total number of items on a marketplace, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Proto, but it is to make sure that we have that engagement across multiple, players, across multiple alliances and on asteroids so that spread can happen.
Absolutely. I think an interesting metaphor you might think of for marketplaces is sort of domestic versus foreign trade. An asteroid like trade that's between different players on the same asteroid can be considered like domestic trade. You're sort of trading with your neighbors, with people who live near you. It can all happen pretty quickly since you're all on the same rock. Like you're not trying to bring anything in or out. It's just between what's being produced on that same rock. Whereas foreign trade is you're trading with other asteroids. You're reaching out, across space. There's a long shipping process to get it across. You wouldn't do that idly. Like you sort of have to plan out your foreign trade to take things where they need to go, to somewhere that makes sense to take them. And so with a small rock, like a 13-kilometer square rock, you're looking at being the only player on that rock usually. Like trying to squeeze two players onto a 13-kilometer square rock is pretty unreasonable, I think. And so in that case, there is no domestic market on a rock that small. There are no other people to trade with. And so you're pretty much, if you put a marketplace on that small of a rock, you were looking for foreign trade only. You were looking to attract other people to your marketplace, since obviously you can't trade with yourself. You want other people to come to it. And being able to do that with a small rock to like put something on there that actually makes it attractive enough for somebody to bother to take the time to send a ship there to pick up or sell materials, you're gonna have to make a pretty sweet deal. You're gonna have to sell whatever you're mining on the asteroid pretty cheaply for people to want to come and make that trade, or be buying it pretty expensively if you want them to come and deliver it for you. So I think overall, like a small marketplace on an asteroid on a small rock is going to be pretty tough to make competitive. Overall, you probably would want to have a ship that you fly to a bigger rock and find a marketplace with better deals for yourself over there, and then come back again. But of course, that has a propellant cost, so you have to sort of weigh those two things. I expect we'll see some on small rocks, but it'll be a little while yet before you really see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think the game needs to be busier and more colonized before you're going to see those smaller marketplaces, I think, really be effective. There was a kind of a good question here, Proto. Maybe you can answer this. But once you set the products on your marketplace, can they change, or are you locked in?
Yeah, you can change them. But if there's a certain amount of like if there is any liquidity for a particular product, I think what you'd have to do is actually literally cancel those. And we're considering allowing the marketplace owner to also cancel active orders on their marketplace, along with obviously the order owner themselves could cancel those orders, those limited orders. Because otherwise, like the marketplace owner just doesn't have control over their marketplace anymore if they can't, change things. So you need to cancel probably all the liquidity for that particular product before removing it and replacing it with something else. I think is the answer there.
Yeah,
Darius is
and
also
I think
asking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I think if anyone's skeptical about, like the owner being able to cancel and the person who has it can be able to cancel, I think that's where reputational systems again become really powerful. And I hope that, the community does build out multiple of those over time. But marketplace reputation, we were actually talking about this yesterday, is like from the user side of something, you could potentially have like loyalty points. And this isn't something we would build in naturally to the game, but for alliances and things like that want to incentivize people using their marketplaces more than others, you could essentially have a loyalty point system that's a soulbound token to that account, and then the more that you use that marketplace in besides others, you'll start to accrue points and be able to get better fees on that marketplace. So I'm excited to see that. That's a little bit further down the road than just initial release, but I think we will see that happen over time. And I'm actually super excited to see how that plays out and how people can kind of incentivize people to use their marketplaces versus others.
Yep, reputation is pretty huge, and I think typically if you were faced with like trying to remove a product from your marketplace rather than canceling all those orders, if you really wanted to like be a good person, you might actually just like match them. You might like buy those things yourself off the market, and then you have a clear slot to trade it out. That might be something that is considered the honorable approach, but we'll see how that all plays out. Darius' question, likes the diverse marketplace idea, but would people just build four marketplaces next to each other to get over the limit? And absolutely, like we expect that there will be hubs where there are lots of marketplaces next to each other, close to each other, able to sort of take advantage of that free transport radius to do arbitrage amongst each other or to have lots of different products together. And I think that's fine. You can basically imagine it like Bob's Emporium ship parts department or Bob's Emporium acids department or whatever it is. You can sort of imagine the same owner might have several different marketplaces in the same area, and I think that's fine. I think that's just interesting. People are sort of making these hubs of different buildings, but the key point there is that if you want to have that diversity of products being sold, you need to start building multiple. You need to invest more in infrastructure to build more marketplaces to be able to do that. I think we'll see some pretty interesting trading hubs. And the other side of that coin, of course, is that if you're doing trading, if you're a merchant, you will want to have storage near that trading hub. The closer your storage is, the faster you'll be able to get goods onto the market or off of the market if you buy them or sell them. So there's some serious advantages to like clustering close to those trading hubs with your storage space, with either a spaceport, with a ship in the spaceport, or your warehouses. So I think that'll be pretty interesting to watch how that develops. And there's a question like, can you have a marketplace on your ship? No, not right now. Marketplaces are something that need to be buildings. Maybe in Discovery there'll be a way to have trade happening on a ship, but I think we'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of interesting ideas around, like, oh, what if you had an extractor ship or or this or that you could do on your ship, a refinery ship. I think maybe that I like that line of thought, but there's a lot more thinking and balancing that would need to be done there to make sure that it doesn't cause problems for the actual buildings that you can do that at. Yes, absolutely. Marketplaces will be nameable. All the public buildings will be nameable. I'm pushing for all the buildings, period, just because I think there's a lot of opportunity for some interesting lore to spring up around those. But yes, absolutely, marketplaces will be nameable. Can you see marketplace trades if you don't have a crew in proximity? Yes, you can see everything. You just can't actually participate. If you don't have a crew there to go and look. Keep in mind, you need to send your crew to that marketplace in order to place a market or limit buy order or sell order. They have to be on premises, and you have to get your goods to the market if you're trying to sell them, and they have to come from the market into your inventory if you're trying to buy them. There's time costs involved, and having your crew stations near to marketplaces will be a big advantage if you want to sort of be agile and able to take the advantage of certain offers as you see them rather than having to wait. And as far as when the new UI is going to get onto testnet, I think that's kind of up to to Patrick and Sergey with where they're at with sort of implementing this. I will say we have seen a lot of some of the new UI already in our internal testnets. The marketplace is still being fleshed out, still being designed, so I don't think that's in there yet. But yes, things are coming together quite quickly in the background. So I can't say any particular times yet, but that's the whole plan for testnet phase 4 is that we're going to be sort of building up to it, and you guys will get regular launch functionality and features that you can play with on the Gorilla testnet.
Yeah, and I'll also add to that. When we push things to testnet, I'm probably going to create a new role for people who are interested in actually testing those features iteratively rather than just doing it at phase 4 or launch. In order to gain access to that, it's probably going to require two things: that you say that you want access to that, and that you own a crewmate or asteroid. That's just so that we can make sure that we're not offering this to thousands of people and having to take support on things that we know are going to change. So this is just to kind of make it so that testers understand that you're testing something that's in development still.
Yep. And so there's some really good questions here about the actual mechanics of buying and selling things on a marketplace. So can you place an order prior to trading? When you place a trade, like when you send your crew to a marketplace to take an order, I think the way that we're going to probably have it work is that the order will be matched at the moment you place the action, even if the crew is still heading there. So, you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, my crew is traveling, what if somebody else snipes it before they get there? You will have matched it, but you have to wait for the crew to get there and back again, and for the products involved to get where they're going to go before you can use the result of that. So if you, for example, tried to sell something, you have to wait for the crew to get there and back. And you have to wait for your products to get there and elsewhere before you get the sway in your pocket that you can use. Or if you're buying something, you have to wait that long for the materials to get to you. So there's still a significant disadvantage to sort of being far away from that marketplace. You don't have to worry about somebody like sniping your order. On the other hand, if you see a good deal on an asteroid far away, you can't actually place an order without your crew there. So if you send your crew or a ship with something, like people are buying a whole bunch of apatite, I'm going to send a bunch of apatite there. If you do that, you create your transfer for your ship, and then the materials get sent, and slowly they get there, and then you get there, and then finally you can place an order with your crew. Somebody easily could have already sold into that order before you get there. So that's something to be aware of with inter-asteroid trade, is that you're always taking a risk if you're going somewhere that's not very liquid. If you're targeting like a marketplace that's like there has one particular deal that you're trying to make, there's no guarantees there. They could remove it before you get there. Somebody else could match it. There's a lot of risk there. So typically you want to head to more liquid locations if you're going to plan like inter-asteroid travel trade.
Yeah,
and then Darius is asking. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think this is also an advantage. I think what we're going to end up seeing either through alliances or third-party tools is kind of like a list of materials that people have but that are not on marketplaces yet, and being able to kind of like asteroid chat with people, being like, hey, I'm going to head there right now. I can be there in 12 hours. Does that work for you? Can you list it once I'm there? Or having whitelist items. So Proto, I don't know if that's already a thing, but like, can you do a private sell order for a particular person?
So the mechanism we have in place for that, for basically peer-to-peer trade, is that you would select somebody else's inventory as a destination for service transport. You have a bunch of material in your own warehouse or whatever. You select theirs as the destination for a service transport action, and you would potentially you could put a price, like an amount of sway that would need to be sort of offered or paid by the other person if they wanted to accept that transfer. And then on their end, they could either accept it and pay the amount of sway, or ignore it and just have nothing happen, or they could reject it. And if it gets rejected, it gets sent back to your warehouse where it started after the amount of time it would have taken to get to theirs. And if they ignore it, then you can cancel it at some point in the future and have it come back to you again as well. So that's sort of the peer-to-peer mechanism we have envisioned. It's not implemented yet, but it's going to, I think, probably slot into the service transport just like I described.
Yeah, so that's potentially an opportunity for later after exploitation or in discovery as like upgrade paths where you could have a bit more control on saying, this order is for this person and they can pick it up anytime and being okay with that. But it sounds like if you're on a different asteroid, that's a whole nother
Yeah, if you wanted to pretty much anything on a particular asteroid, you need to have a crew active there that can take those actions. There's no sort of remote sending a robot to do your job. It's you need to have your crews. Like Dalians don't like AI. Darius asks a great question. What are the mechanics for how goods move when sold? Do they move from seller's warehouse to buyer's warehouse? The answer there is that this is an interesting mechanic. Is that when you place like a sell order to try to sell, a limit sell order, so you're putting your goods up for sale on the marketplace. Um, the goods need to be shipped to the marketplace. So there's a period of time where they go from your source inventory to the marketplace. And once they're there, they are available for being matched, being purchased on the marketplace by somebody who's placing a market buy on the marketplace for that product. And then when you place a market buy for a particular good, then you have to wait for the goods to travel from the marketplace to your destination inventory. And so it's not like source to destination directly. There's the goods notionally have to travel to the marketplace itself, even though it's not an inventory, it doesn't store things. And when you're doing that, keep in mind that your source or your destination inventory that you sort of set up will have a reservation in it. Like if you placed a limit sell, which means like I have these goods, I want to put them up for sale at this particular price and wait for somebody else to come and match that. Then those goods, quote unquote, go to the marketplace, but there's still a reservation for them in your source inventory. They're not like gone fully yet until they've actually been sold. So that if you cancel your order, there's always a space for them when it comes back to your source inventory, and vice versa for the buying side of things. And so the reason we did that is because we want all products on a particular marketplace to be sort of on an equal footing. We don't want there to be like an added dimension of how far does this have to travel from somebody else's inventory to get to me. Like, some orders might be more valuable than others because they're closer to you, farther away from you. We want them to all be on even par with each other. And so by forcing them to travel to the marketplace first before they're available, that means that they're all the same distance from you as a buyer on that marketplace. They will all take the exact same amount of time from that one marketplace to get to you at a particular source or destination inventory. So you don't have to worry about that at all. It just sort of takes that out of the equation entirely. That's how that'll work.
Thunder, I'm not sure, maybe, I don't know if you were here the whole time or anything like this, but Proto had just kind of mentioned, and maybe this answers your question, is kind of like private trading between people. You probably still have to go through the marketplace, but you could basically, if you're allocating it to a particular storage or warehouse, that's how you would do it. And whether or not you want to charge a fee for that, that's up to you.
Yeah, like specifically the peer-to-peer trading mechanic. So private trading, it doesn't even involve the marketplace. It's just you have a warehouse or a ship that has something in it. You do a service transport, which you guys have already played with on testnet phase 3 service transfer. You have to select a destination inventory, like where that's going to go, those particular goods that you selected. You select somebody else's inventory, like a ship or a warehouse, rather than your own, like normal. And you could potentially put a sway amount that you would want them to accept to pay you before they would be able to accept that transfer. And then on their end, they could either accept that and pay this way, or they could reject it and just have nothing else happen, or they could completely ignore it. And so that's generally how that would work. In terms of being unsafe, I mean, you're guaranteed that if you put a sway amount, that they'll have to pay that sway amount before they get that material. It's not like you're trusting them. At least that's the mechanic would be designed. If you put it for free, then of course they could just accept it for free and then they have it. You do that like between friends or between different of your own crew, like that. I think that'll be probably one of the most common uses for that is just moving things around internally with your own crews. But if you wanted to put a sway amount, you could. Yeah, pretty much. Cash on delivery.
I think it's also just like how do we do this while making it easy for people to trade, peer to peer, but also make sure that we're not making marketplaces obsolete. and I think marketplaces are a massive part of this game, and so we want to make sure those are empowered as much as possible to be the main supply of liquidity, while also understanding people are going to want to trade between each other and with themselves through different crews, and making sure that's possible.
I don't know if any of you guys played RuneScape back in the day, but they had peer-to-peer trading. That was like the default way to trade. Is you just had to like walk up to somebody and be like, "I want to trade you this for that." And then they added the Grand Exchange, which was like the centralized marketplace where you could just buy and sell everything without ever meeting your counterparty. And then they actually banned peer-to-peer trading, and everyone just hated it. It was like like the marketplace works, but you just lose all like the sort of social interaction, all the fun of finding a deal, of selling somebody, like but haggling them up or down. You just lost all that. So we definitely want to support peer-to-peer trading, and we think that yes, it might sort of pull a little bit of trade away from the marketplaces, but the marketplace has the advantage of convenience. Like you don't need to go through all the haggling, all that sort of interpersonal stuff. You can just go and see what is up there and immediately make a deal if you see something you like. So I think they both serve sort of different needs in terms of trade.
I also think that while it may take away a small percentage of marketplace trading, it also, I think, adds value to kind of land on larger asteroids where there are a lot of people. If you have a large area of land and lots of people are there, regardless of whether or not they're using the marketplace, you can just adjust the fees that you're charging for that rented land. So I think it's all a balancing act here. You could potentially say, okay, well, my land is free to play on. You can just grab a lease and go, and then you charge really high fees at your marketplace. That might drive more peer-to-peer trading, naturally. So then you might not want to do for free, and you charge some kind of fee. It's all a balancing act, and it's up to you, the owner of an asteroid, to figure out what works for you, and what marketplace owners will just have to decide what works for them as well. There might be also questions of like, well, I own the asteroid and I don't want anyone else to have marketplaces on this asteroid. I mean, you can technically do this by just like kicking people off who build marketplaces so that they don't get leases anymore or things like that. But again, I think reputation and loyalty systems and things like that will be implemented over time through third parties to really try and help understand what is a good asteroid to live on, what are the reputation of both the people and the owners that are here, and try to make that as fluid and easy as possible to being, a quote unquote landlord.
There's just so many levers that you'll have available to you as an asteroid owner or as a building operator. Like, I think this will be pretty rich, as they say. Atherex has a good question. Any information on bulk abundances, which means like how much on average of particular resource raw material types will there be on particular spectral types? The answer to that is that that is an outcome of the balancing process that I still am working furiously to try to get to. I'm still filling in the numbers on the production chains, and once I've done that, I'll be able to figure out sort of equilibrium, relative values or costs, time costs for each of those products, and what that'll ramify down to at the very sort of leaves of the tree, if you will, like where the root is like a ship or a building that you've made. Like at the leaves, it's all the raw materials that you put into that process. That'll ramify into sort of like a relative demand for each raw material. And that, combined with the actual known surface area of each spectral type, will give us the sort of balanced amount, bulk abundances of each raw material that we need in the belt to make things pretty balanced. So it depends a lot on the production chains is the answer, and we're still working on those. So we'll get those to you when we have them.
We have another about 15 minutes that we can go, but again, this is your guys' time. So if you got questions, ask them. Otherwise, it's no big deal. I think we focus pretty heavily on marketplaces, which honestly feels pretty exciting that we can kind of dive into one specific feature and just talk about that. But again, you're not you can ask questions about other topics if you guys have.
Nobody wanted to talk about potassium fluoride. I'm sad.
Yeah. Yeah, you went down the rabbit hole. I see some people typing, so it just sounds like okay. Here we go. What would be the next thing that we test? Orbits, or do we have to wait until everything is ready before we do anything else? That's a great question. I think you probably have a better idea than I do, Proto, in terms of like what might be the next thing that gets pushed to testnet.
Yeah,
I don't.
actually, the impression that I have right now is that it's probably going to be the Elasticsearch and List View, since that's been what sort of the our Charlie and Patrick have been really hot and heavy working on is the so basically this is our indexer sort of next iteration where we are not just serving sort of basic data, but we're allowing you to do all those complicated filters, all those sort of logic between those different filters for a lot of different pieces of data about the game. And I think I've already seen that in the client, in our internal test client, been able to play with that some, and I expect that probably that'll be one of the first things that hits the public or the client next, is indexed stuff, which I recognize sounds a little dry. Oh boy, we can try out spreadsheet mode, but there is a lot of data there. That includes the new lot filters, which I think you guys saw a screenshot of it from Darkos a few weeks ago, where it sort of looked like lava, like on the surface of AP. What that was is actually showing the two different types of buildings like that currently exist on testnet AP, which is the extractors and warehouses. You could see the distribution of each of those, which I think is fascinating. And obviously, there will be more building types as we roll those out that you can assign different colors to. So that's just one example out of many of what you can do with these new Elasticsearch filters. And that's with the new UI, with the sort of spiced up UI that Sergey has been sort of building and Patrick has been implementing. So I think that probably is the next thing that was going to roll out in terms of like orbits or marketplaces or ship transfers or ships themselves, crew movement. Like which of those mechanics are actually ready to roll out yet? I'm not sure. It depends a lot on our Cairo 1 implementation. And currently, if I understand correctly, Charlie and Chris and Darkos are working on Cairo 1.0 migrations for a lot of the libraries right now for our smart contracts. And that's sort of taking up a lot of their time. Like Cairo 1 is like so fresh off the press that there's actually like not a lot of tooling right now for it. There's not like sort of, VS Code integrations. There's not like a lot of test frameworks. Like there's just, everybody's like quickly rolling those things out right now. And so we're sort of like a little bit ahead of the curve and you're sort of at that bleeding edge where like, there's not very good tooling or not very good documentation, and so we're sort of having to work through that. But as soon as they get all the libraries re-implemented in Cairo 1, they'll be able to sort of dive into some new stuff. I know Chris in particular is extremely excited to start working on some of these new mechanics that we've been sort of hashing out for a long time, but we haven't actually put into code yet. So that'll happen pretty soon, I think. And once that's done, like the UI is, for all these things is ready, and the client is being prepared right now. So it'll just be a matter of connecting up to the smart contracts and making sure the indexer is able to pull it, and so we can get that data in, and you guys will be able to try it. So it's coming together.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Also, one thing for Discord, because I just thought, I know originally we were going to do a potential share of a huge asteroid getting rolled on this call. Star Wars Freak has one, and Discord has now enabled screen share in Stages channel.
Oh, did they?
So, yeah,
Awesome.
it's there for me at least. I don't know. Do you see it on yours on the bottom?
I do. I do.
Yeah, that's brand new. That was not there. So that'll be fun. I think we can actually have some more, some better sharing now in these calls, and we don't have to do it directly in kind of the general chat.
That's
when we
awesome.
do that. So that's exciting. I think Star Wars Freak, just so maybe we plan another time for the huge getting rolled. I think that's just, it feels like a big event, and I want to make sure that many people can see that as possible. But if you don't want to wait, I'm happy to have you do that today. Just you let me know.
I'll take some. There you go. That's Star Wars Freak.
Yeah, sorry. I'm fine to wait. If you want to plan some big unveiling, I will defer to you guys, assuming I can get off of work to make it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you some notice on that. Oh, did you? Oh, you're just down on the stage. So yeah, we'll hold off today, but there are some more questions here.
Yeah, I can take those.
When is Sway going to be listed? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, in terms of listing, I think that's probably still up in the air. We're to be very clear, we are not paying to be listed anywhere, whether that's an exchange or a site that just shows statistics. If we're going to get picked up anywhere, it's going to be because we're a huge game that they want to have on their exchange or on their token tracking site. I think CoinGecko is typically pretty good about adding things as they become at all interesting to people. CMC is owned by Binance, so I can't speak to that one. As far as Nathrix's question, will methane steam rolling, I love this, be a way to generate hydrogen on a C-type? So there's methane steam cracking and water gas shift is the process that actually takes methane and turns it into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Um, and that one is definitely going to be available on a C-type. Methane it does contain hydrogen. It's CH4, so you can get quite a lot of hydrogen out of it. And energetically speaking, that process is in fact more efficient than water electrolysis, turning H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. You can do that more efficiently. You can do it faster. So methane is probably going to be the feedstock for getting most hydrogen on the C-type if you don't want to import it from an I-type that just has raw hydrogen on it. In terms of efficiency between those two, I can't at this exact moment give a hard number. That field still needs to be filled, but I think it's somewhere on the order of 2 to 3 times more energetically efficient, which for us, for our purposes, means that since each refinery has like a limited amount of power, that means it could run 2 or 3 times more quickly for a given amount of output material. So I think typically methane is probably going to be the way that you'd want to get hydrogen on a C-type.
Before I forget and we get to the end of this call, I want to let everyone know who's here because I see a lot of you guys week after week. I'm going to be putting together a community survey, just trying to better understand, what type of people are here, what kind of games you guys play, the YouTube channels that maybe you follow. Just understand our audience better now that we've had this next sale and we've brought in some new people. I want to do my best to make sure that we're getting in front of audiences that are clearly resonant with our audience, and that's going to be great. So over the next week or so, you guys will probably see that come out, and we'll probably do an asteroid giveaway or something along those lines. To a random person who participates, so that there's some incentive. But honestly, it would just be great for people to give that feedback so that we can, do better as a team, getting in front of, people that will eventually play this game. So just a heads up on that one. I'm really excited. And then I know some of you guys were here on Tuesday listening to me. The merch store is almost ready. There were some weird issues with international shipping, and so I have to track down why the shipping doesn't come out to be the same price as what it quotes. And once I can do that, I'm going to be able to launch that. So I'm hoping either tomorrow or early next week that we can have the merch store up. But I'll make some announcements around that so everyone knows that it's live. The products there right now are likely not limited. They are going to just be drop shipping, made to order, and there will be plenty of them. But in the future, we'll likely do some token gating merch where if you own a specific type of asset, or we just do limited runs, we'll make sure that only community members who own assets or something might be able to purchase things. So we're working on that. There's definitely opportunity. We'll see if it happens by launch, but potentially like 3D models of the ships and things like that could be a possibility. We've been having Commissar help us a little bit with some of those models just to get them print ready, but that doesn't mean that they're ready to be sent off to a printing agency that we can make them to order. So that's kind of a longer term goal for us to be able to provide that. But again, just giving you guys some updates on some of the things we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, check out the merch store. There's a great question. When will we see numbers for energy requirements for different production and refinement processes? And as Shavo answers, energy is kind of for exploitation anywhere, abstracted away. What you will see for each process, rather than like an energy requirement, is actually what we're calling M and B values, which if you know algebra, like the linear equation is defined by a slope and an intercept, the slope being the m and the b being the intercept, but which practically speaking means that there's a constant amount of time that every process will take, no matter how much of what you're producing. That's the b value, and then there's a slope to it, which is how much time per unit of process that you're running, which you can think about like as how much you want to get out of the process. There'll be a certain amount of time for that. And so the place that energy impacts that is usually in the m section of it, the slope. So if you have a process that's energy limited, for example, water electrolysis, then you might see a number something like 40 to 60 kilowatt hours per kilogram of hydrogen. And what that means is that, if you have, say, 10 megawatts of power, which I think is what we're estimating that the refinery has, then you can sort of divide that and see exactly how many kilograms per hour of hydrogen you could produce with that refinery. And so that tells you the limitation on that process speed. And so what you guys will get is the M and B values. And in some cases, some processes will not be energy limited, but you'll still have an M and B value. And the M will just include in that case, sort of manufacturing time or whatever other, limiting values that I've estimated for that process. And those will be the numbers that you get. In Discovery, I could certainly see us adding an energy mechanic. That's a great upgrade path potentially, is like adding a solar array or adding a fusion reactor or adding a this or that to a building to make it go faster, especially for like energy limited processes like water electrolysis or a lot of these other ones. But that's Discovery stuff, so we don't have that yet. There's also the great question: is there a way to make cement with water instead of deionized water? The answer is yes. So the difference between water and deionized water is that water is the raw stuff that comes out of asteroids. It's asteroid water, and it's salty. Like it's kind of like ocean water. It's got some salts, dissolved salts in it. And you can separate those by sort of doing a vacuum evaporation process where you get the pure water and you get the salts on their own, and you can use the salts for lots of things. And so both the pure water and the salty water can be used to make cement, which is a component of like the shotcrete that you use to build buildings. And shotcrete, to update anybody who wasn't aware of this, concrete is no longer a product in the game. It's cement, which is just the sort of calcium oxide plus water. The concrete is that cement plus an aggregate, which is like sort of rocks or gravel or sand. And what we've said is that basically aggregate is coming from asteroid regolith now. Sort of like a local material that you don't need to think about anymore. The Adalians will just like sort of grind some up and mix it into their cement when they want to make concrete to build their buildings. It just wouldn't make sense to be like shipping around all this sand when there's just aggregate everywhere that you could use for building buildings. So the product that you'll be shipping around is in fact cement, and that is just either water or deionized water plus calcium oxide. And the way that we have those working is that there's two separate processes, one of which is cement mixing and the other of which is salty cement mixing. And salty cement mixing produces less efficient concrete, so you get less concrete out of it. In the real world, what that means is that concrete is about 15% weaker when it's salty, when it has like made with seawater, for example. And so we're correcting for that by saying that you just sort of get less concrete out of it. Like if you want to have the same strength of concrete, you need to make more of it. And so that's what you're going to see, is that there's two different ways to make cement. And correct, Nathrax, there's no more silica needed for concrete. It's just the cement portion of it. Wind turbines, yeah. To get that asteroid wind, the slower wind is great for that. No, there will not be. When on the production chains, I'm going as fast as I can. I think I mentioned before that there's like over 1,800 different numbers in the exploitation production chains, and we're well over the halfway point with that. I'm moving pretty quickly now on filling those in, but it's just a lot of research, a lot of sort of checking of numbers, a lot of chemistry, sort of stoichiometry, making sure that chemical reactions have the right inputs and outputs and in the right ratios. And we're trying to make this be pretty realistic. Like there are a couple places we're going to fudge some things just because, like, for example, with aluminum, like the bauxite, which is the normal source of aluminum, doesn't actually exist in any of our products. And so the feldspar that you get it from, like in real life, you would need to actually like use quite a lot of hydrofluoric acid to get that aluminum out of there, which is super expensive and like not economical at all. So we're going to like actually tune that down a little bit. Like you're going to need to use less hydrofluoric acid than you would in reality, just because that's our only source of aluminum. But yeah, it's I think overall pretty realistic, and so I'm going as quickly as I can to get those numbers, and I will share them with you guys as soon as I have them. And yes, icy aggregates, you're like, oh gosh, what if I make concrete out of ice? Is it going to melt? The answer in that case is actually you can imagine a compromise where if it's that cold that you have ice, you could actually use water as the concrete, as shotcrete, and it might actually be a pretty decent fixative agent on itself. So, there's a little bit of hand waving there where we're like, okay, you still need cement to do it, but also we're not going to worry about the aggregate being ice instead of, rock in that situation. You might actually have some cement with like some actual ice that's being used to sort of fix things together. If we wanted to get more into that, we could have had like all the different spectral types have different like mechanisms for building buildings and, different energy levels, different solar insulations, but we had to choose some things to not reproduce in this game because that would just make it too complicated. And that was one of them. Juice is asking, will some processes have multiple outputs? And the answer is yes. That was a big change that we made several months ago. We had originally thought that they would all have a single output, but in reality, a lot of chemical processes have multiple outputs. So this is specifically for the refinery. A lot of refinery processes will have multiple chemical outputs that you can then use for various things. But keep in mind that you have to choose a primary output, which is the one that you'll get 100% of, and all the secondary outputs that you didn't choose get some diminished amount. So there's always a trade-off there to deciding what you want to produce primarily with that process. Yes, Ice Castle's out in the Trojans. I think we will see something like that for sure. Yeah.
That can be an add-on to Influence if anyone wants to build it. You can build your asteroid Ice Kingdom.
No, that's the mod community. Like when you habitats will just be like giant igloos that are spinning.
And you could maybe simulate, if you throw ice off of one asteroid, try and hit another. That'll be the Kerbal Space Program of the Ice Kingdom. Just attach a little rocket to a giant ice cube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that we were not being accurate about. It was the ability to actually like push asteroids around, because like that absolutely is going to happen in reality if we ever get to that point. They are much more convenient closer to the sun or farther away from the sun or whatever it is, and can be used as weapons to hit each other with. Like, we're not going to do that because the asteroids are on a fixed orbit and they're NFTs that you can't lose. So there's no steering of asteroids.
It'd be fun to make a game that was like ultra fast, where you push an asteroid and see how much change you could make in the belt.
Yep. All right. And to be clear, Star Wars Freak, there's no actual difference between icy types and any other asteroid with the concrete, or with the cement rather. They all work the same. I was just saying that there's a lore reason why you might think that ice might work just as well as other aggregates.
I might just be, a noob here, but the density of ice in space due to, the zero temperature. I'm curious if the density is just a little bit higher than what we can get here with gravity and air.
Maybe there's a bunch of different ice crystal types that are out there. A lot of them require high pressures though to see. You might see some of those ice 6s or ice 7s, but the normal ice form usually is just a zero pressure, like you would see in vacuum, and it's not too much denser than normal ice.
There we go. Maybe we'll have multiple different ices. Which one's best for cocktails? To be determined.
One of them is at 20 gigabar, so it's going to blow your up.
Yeah. Don't drink, the dry ice. Okay, guys. Well, we're at time here. Thank you guys for coming. Let me just make sure I'm answering all these questions that we have currently. Influence partnership with Universe Sandbox. I think that's a joke there, but we don't have any partnerships with Sandbox at this point, if that was at all serious. I think we're good here. Thank you guys. If there was anything that I mentioned that you think would be helpful to have posted in chat or something like that, let me know. This is being recorded, so I'll have that up on YouTube shortly. And then, guys, thank you for being here, and really looking forward to showing more. The marketplaces, you'll get more sneak peeks on that, I think, sooner rather than later.
Can't wait. Take care, everyone.